You're just jealous, Natalie. Not everything is about you, my dad snapped, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. Every head at our table turned. My sister lifted her glass and smirked. Can you not ruin tonight for once? My birthday cake sat in front of me, untouched, candles still burning, wax dripping slowly onto the frosting. Then a stranger stepped up behind me. Natalie Brooks? I turned around. He was wearing a plain suit, holding a manila envelope. He placed it in my hand. You'll want to read this now. My name is Natalie Brooks, and I'm 36 years old. I work as a public school guidance counselor. It's not the kind of job that makes people's eyes light up at dinner parties. There's no corner office, no six-figure bonus, no fancy title. It's a steady paycheck, long days, and a parade of students who just need someone, anyone, to believe in them. I'm good at it. I'm patient. I listen. I remember details. And I show up every single day, even when no one notices. In my family, that was always my role. The practical one. The reliable one. The one who picked up the phone at 2 in the morning when someone needed help. The one who drove 3 hours to fix a problem nobody else wanted to touch. Not flashy. Not impressive. Just dependable. My younger sister, Valerie, was the one they celebrated. She graduated from law school at 25. She got engaged to a rising attorney named Derek who wore designer watches and talked about his caseload like it was a sport he was winning. My parents bragged about Valerie the way some people brag about vacation homes. Constantly. Loudly. To anyone who would listen. And me? I was the background. The stage crew behind the curtain. Growing up, I learned how to clap for Valerie's wins while quietly shrinking my own feelings into something small enough to swallow. When she got into law school, dinner that night was all about her. When I got my master's degree in counseling the same year, my mom said, "That's nice, honey. Can you pass the salt?" I wasn't rich or glamorous. I didn't have a ring on my finger or a career that photographed well. But I had something they didn't expect, something they never once thought to worry about. Discipline. Documentation. And a memory that doesn't blur when it matters. I kept records of everything. Not because I was paranoid, but because my job trained me to. Every meeting, every conversation, every promise made to a student or a parent, I wrote it down. Dates, times, exact words. It became second nature, like breathing. That habit followed me home. It followed me into every family gathering, every holiday where my accomplishments were skipped over, every birthday where the attention slid to someone else. I remember the year I got promoted to lead counselor at my school. I called my dad to tell him. He said, "That's great," and then spent 20 minutes talking about how Valerie had been invited to a legal conference in Chicago. I remember the Thanksgiving where I hosted dinner for 14 people, cooked for 2 days straight, and my mom spent the blessing thanking God for Valerie's bright future. I was standing right there, holding the turkey. I remember every single time I was made to feel like an afterthought in my own family. And I remember the birthday dinner that broke something inside me for good. Not my heart. My patience. Before I continue, I want to talk to you for a second. If you've ever been the dependable one in your family, the one who shows up, who sacrifices, who holds everything together and gets nothing back, then you already know exactly how this feels. If you've ever tried to express genuine hurt and been told you're just jealous, then you know the kind of loneliness I'm talking about. It's not jealousy. It never was. It's the pain of loving people who don't see you. So if you've ever felt underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed by the people who were supposed to love you the most, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. You're not alone in this. Have you ever been the dependable one nobody celebrates? Drop a comment and let me know. And before I tell you what was inside that envelope, hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. The dinner was supposed to be for my birthday. That was the plan. My dad called me 2 weeks earlier and said, "We're doing something special for you this year. Nat 36 is a big one." I didn't believe it at first. My family hadn't done anything special for my birthday in years. But something in his voice sounded genuine, so I let myself hope. I picked out a dress. I got my hair done. I showed up to the restaurant 10 minutes early, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Excitement. The restaurant was nicer than I expected. White tablecloths, dim lighting, the soft clink of wine glasses, and the low hum of jazz coming from somewhere near the bar. It smelled like garlic bread and fresh flowers. For a moment, I thought maybe this year would be different. Then I walked in and saw the banner. It read, "Happy birthday, Natalie, and congratulations, Valerie and Derek." My stomach dropped. They had combined my birthday dinner with Valerie's engagement celebration. Nobody had asked me. Nobody had even mentioned it. My mother waved me over to a long table filled with relatives. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in months. All of them buzzing about the engagement. Valerie was already seated at the center, Derek's arm draped around her shoulder, a diamond ring catching the candlelight every time she moved her hand, which she did often. "There she is," my mom said, pulling me into a quick hug. "Doesn't the banner look nice? Your father thought it would be fun to celebrate both things at once." Fun. That was the word she used. I sat down at the far end of the table. No one moved to make room for me near the center. The cake, my cake, was placed in front of me almost as an afterthought, like a prop nobody planned to use. Halfway through dinner, my dad stood up. He tapped his glass with a fork, and the table went quiet. "I want to say a few words," he began. And then he talked for 6 straight minutes about Valerie. About how proud he was of her career. About how Derek was the son he never had. About how their future was going to be extraordinary. He used the word extraordinary twice. Then, right at the end, almost like a footnote, he glanced down at me and said, "And of course, happy birthday to Natalie. 36. Wow. Time flies. That was it. Time flies. 6 minutes for Valerie. 5 seconds for me. The table raised their glasses. I raised mine too, because that's what I'd been trained to do. Smile. Clap. Disappear. But something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the banner. Maybe it was the way no one even looked at me during the toast. Maybe it was 36 years of silence pressing against the inside of my chest. I set my glass down and spoke. "I just want to say something," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I appreciate the dinner. But I feel like my birthday has been kind of pushed to the side tonight. This happens a lot, and I'd like us to talk about it." The table went still. You could hear the jazz music clearly now because no one was speaking. My mom's smile tightened. Valerie tilted her head like I'd said something absurd. And my dad, my own father, looked at me with an expression I will never forget. It was irritation. Pure, undisguised irritation. "You're just jealous, Natalie," he said. "Not everything is about you. Your sister is getting married. Can you be happy for her for one night?" "One night," I repeated. "Every night is her night, Dad. Every holiday. Every dinner. Every phone call. I'm asking for one moment of acknowledgement, and you're calling me jealous." Valerie leaned forward. "Can you not ruin tonight for once?" "Seriously, Natalie. This is embarrassing." The word hit me like a slap. Embarrassing. I was embarrassing for asking to be seen. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, someone spoke from behind me. "Natalie Brooks?" I turned around. A man in a plain dark suit stood at the edge of our table, holding a manila envelope. He wasn't a waiter. He wasn't a guest. He was calm, professional, and completely out of place. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said. "My name is Daniel Reeves. I'm a compliance officer with Weston Financial Group. I've been trying to reach you for several weeks regarding a matter tied to your late grandmother's estate." The table went dead silent. He placed the sealed envelope in my hand. "This is a summary of findings from a routine financial review. It concerns a trust fund established in your name by Eleanor Brooks in 2006. I strongly recommend you review it carefully." I opened the envelope. Inside was a 12-page report with highlighted sections, transaction records, and a cover letter that began with the words, "Unauthorized access and disbursement of trust assets." My grandmother had set up a trust fund for me. Over $140,000, designated specifically for my use, my education, my future. And according to this report, the funds had been accessed and drained over a 7-year period, beginning in 2011. The authorized signatory on the withdrawal forms was my father. I looked up from the paper. My dad's face had gone white. My mother's hand was gripping the edge of the table. Valerie was staring at the envelope like it was a grenade. No one spoke. The candles on my birthday cake were still burning, wax pooling on the frosting, and the restaurant jazz played on as if nothing had happened. But everything had changed. This wasn't just emotional neglect anymore. This was financial betrayal. And for the first time in my life, I had proof. The morning after the dinner, my phone rang at 7. It was my dad. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. "Natalie, we need to talk about last night. That man had no business showing up like that. Whatever that paperwork says, there's context you don't understand." I sat on the edge of my bed, the report spread across my kitchen table where I'd read it 3 times the night before. Every page, every highlighted line, every withdrawal date. "What context?" I asked. He paused. "When your grandmother passed, there were expenses. Medical bills, funeral costs, things that needed to be handled quickly. The trust was there, and we used part of it to cover what needed covering. You were 23. You weren't in a position to manage that kind of money." "Part of it," I said. "Dad, the report says the entire balance was withdrawn over 7 years. $143,000. Down to 0. Another pause. "Longer this time. You agreed to it, Natalie. Don't you remember? We had a conversation about it. You said it was fine to use for family needs." I didn't remember that conversation, because it never happened. But for a moment, just a moment, I questioned myself. That's what gaslighting does. It doesn't make you believe the lie. It makes you doubt the truth. I said I needed time to think. He said, "Don't do anything rash." Then he hung up. 2 hours later, Valerie called. Her tone was sharper, less careful. "Dad told me you're upset about the trust thing. Natalie, you weren't even using that money. It was just sitting there. Mom and Dad put it toward things that mattered. My law school tuition, the house repairs, the medical bills after Grandma's surgery. You're acting like they stole from you." "They took money that was in my name without telling me," I said. "That's not acting." "You're blowing this out of proportion," she said. "You always do this. You find something to be upset about, and then you hold on to it like a weapon. Just let it go." I didn't respond. I just listened to the silence between us and realized something that should have been obvious years ago. They weren't just dismissing my feelings. They were protecting a secret. And now that the secret was out, every argument, every excuse, every redirection was designed to get me to stop looking. My parents showed up at my apartment 2 days later. Unannounced. My mom brought a casserole, which was her version of a peace offering. My dad sat at my kitchen table like he owned it. "Sweetheart," my mom began, "this family has always done things together. When your grandmother left that money, it was understood that it would help all of us. Not just you." "It was in my name, Mom," I said. "Grandma put it in my name specifically. She loved all of us," my mom said. "She wouldn't have wanted this to tear us apart." My dad leaned forward. "Your sister's education cost a fortune. We didn't have the savings. The trust helped cover that. And you benefited too. Who do you think paid for your car insurance those years? Who covered your dental work?" "I paid for my own dental work," I said. "I have the receipts." He blinked. "The point is, we're a family. Families share. You're making this into something ugly when it doesn't need to be." "Did you forge my signature?" I asked. The room went cold. My mom looked at the floor. My dad's jaw tightened. "That's a serious accusation, Natalie," he said. "I'm asking a serious question," I said. He stood up. "We're done here. When you're ready to stop acting like a victim, call us." They left. The casserole stayed on the counter. I didn't eat it. The next week, things got worse in a different way. Valerie posted something on social media. She didn't use my name, but she didn't need to. So exhausting when someone in your life makes everything about themselves. Jealousy is a disease. Grateful for the people who actually support me. The comments flooded in. Family members, friends, people who didn't know the full story, but were happy to pick a side. My cousin Rachel texted me. "Val seems really hurt. Maybe you should apologize and move on." My Aunt Linda called. "Natalie, your father is a good man. Whatever this is about, you need to let it go before it destroys the family." Nobody asked me what happened. Nobody asked for my side. They just assumed I was the problem, because that's the role I'd always been assigned. So I stopped arguing. I stopped explaining. I stopped calling back. And I started preparing. I pulled out every document I had, every old bank statement I could find, every letter my grandmother had written me. I requested the official trust documents from Weston Financial Group. I printed the transaction logs and organized them by date. I cross-referenced withdrawal amounts with tuition payments, mortgage records, and credit card statements I obtained through public financial records. This wasn't anger anymore. This was method. This was the same process I used at work when a student's case required documentation for court. Step by step. Fact by fact. No emotion. Just evidence. What they didn't know is that I document everything. It's not something I do to be difficult. It's not paranoia. It's professional habit. In my line of work, if something isn't written down, it didn't happen. I've sat in courtrooms with judges who needed to hear exact dates, exact words, exact sequences of events. I've submitted case files that determined whether a child stayed in a home or was removed. The difference between a good outcome and a bad one often came down to paperwork. So I keep everything. And I mean everything. Letters, emails, bank statements, handwritten notes from phone conversations, even birthday cards. Every card my grandmother ever sent me was in a shoebox in my closet. I pulled them out and read through them again. In one, dated 2005, a year before she set up the trust, she wrote, "Natalie, you're the one who reminds me of myself. Steady. Strong. Don't let anyone take that from you." In another, from 2007, she wrote, "The trust is for your future, sweetheart. Not anyone else's. Promise me you'll use it wisely when the time is right." She knew. Somehow, even then, she knew there might come a day when someone would try to take what she'd set aside for me. I requested the full trust paperwork from Weston Financial Group. It arrived 10 days later in a thick envelope. I spread the documents across my dining table and went through every page. The trust had been established on March 14, 2006. It named me as the sole beneficiary. The initial deposit was $85,000, with additional contributions over the next 3 years that brought the total to $143,600. The terms were specific. Funds could only be accessed by the beneficiary upon reaching the age of 25 or with notarized written consent from the beneficiary for early withdrawal. I found the consent forms. There were 4 of them, dated between 2011 and 2016. Each one authorized a withdrawal ranging from $18,000 to $42,000. Each one bore a signature that was supposed to be mine. But it wasn't. The handwriting was close. Someone had practiced. But the loop on the N was wrong. The tail on the E was too short. And on one form, the middle initial was listed as R. My middle name starts with J. Natalie Jean Brooks. Whoever filled out that form didn't even get my middle initial right. I photographed every page. I made copies. I stored the originals in a locked filing cabinet at my office. Then I called a financial investigator named Susan Park, whose name I'd gotten from a colleague. I told her what I'd found. She listened without interrupting, then said, "This is textbook trust fraud. If those signatures were forged and the trustee authorized withdrawals without proper consent, there are both civil and criminal implications." "What do I need to do?" I asked. "Keep gathering," she said, "and find the original trustee or the attorney who drafted the documents. They may still have records that can confirm or contradict what your father is claiming." I hung up the phone and sat in my quiet apartment. The sound of the refrigerator humming was the only noise in the room. For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't expected. Calm. Not because the situation was calm. It wasn't. But because I finally had direction. I wasn't begging to be heard anymore. I wasn't arguing with people who refused to listen. I had a plan they never saw coming. And there was one more person I needed to call. His name was Mr. Halpern. Gerald Halpern. He was an estate attorney in his mid-70s, semi-retired, working out of a small office above a dry cleaner on Birch Street. He had handled my grandmother's estate when she passed in 2009. I hadn't spoken to him in over 15 years. I wasn't sure he'd remember me. I called his office on a Tuesday morning. A woman answered, and I gave my name. There was a pause. Then Mr. Halpern's voice came on the line, gravelly and slow but unmistakable. "Natalie Brooks," he said. "Eleanor's granddaughter. You remember me?" I asked. "Of course I remember you," he said. "You were the only one who came to every meeting. Your parents couldn't be bothered half the time, but you were always there, sitting next to Eleanor, taking notes in that little blue notebook." I felt a lump in my throat. I hadn't thought about that notebook in years. "I need your help, Mr. Halpern," I said. "I think something was done with the trust my grandmother set up for me. Something that wasn't supposed to happen." There was a long silence. Then he said, "I've been wondering when this call would come." He told me that in 2011, my father had contacted him requesting access to the trust. Mr. Halpern had explained the terms. Beneficiary access only. Natalie's signature required for any early withdrawal. My father had not been happy. "He pushed hard," Mr. Halpern said. "Told me the money was needed for medical bills. I told him the trust had rules and I wasn't going to bend them." "So what happened?" I asked. "He stopped calling me," Mr. Halpern said. "A few months later, I got a letter from Weston Financial confirming that withdrawals had been made with signed consent forms. I assumed you'd agreed." "I didn't," I said. "I never signed anything." Another silence. "Then someone forged your name," he said quietly. "And they went around me to do it." Mr. Halpern still had the original notarized copies of the trust agreement, the ones filed with his office before the trust was transferred to Weston Financial for management. He also had correspondence from my father, including one letter where my dad explicitly acknowledged that the trust was designated solely for me. That letter alone contradicted every claim my father had made. Mr. Halpern offered to help me file for a formal legal review. He connected me with a litigation attorney named Sandra Voss, who specialized in estate fraud. Together, they prepared a request for a mediation meeting with all parties present. When my father received the notice, he called me immediately. "You're really doing this," he said. "You're going to drag your family into a legal office over money?" "You dragged me there first," I said. "I'm just showing up with the truth." He hung up. The family went quiet for days. No calls, no texts, no social media posts. They were confident, though. I could feel it. They assumed I would back down the way I always had. They assumed the quiet, dependable Natalie would fold under pressure, apologize, and let it go. They had no idea what I was bringing to that table. The meeting was held on a Friday morning at Sandra Voss's office downtown. It was a corner conference room on the 4th floor, with tall windows that let in gray daylight and a long wooden table surrounded by leather chairs. The room smelled like fresh coffee and printer paper. Sandra sat at the head of the table. Mr. Halpern sat beside me. Across from us sat my parents, Valerie and Derek. They had brought their own attorney, a man named Patterson, who looked like he'd been briefed 10 minutes earlier. My dad was wearing his best suit. My mom was clutching her purse like a life raft. Valerie had her arms crossed. Derek kept checking his phone. Sandra opened the meeting by laying out the purpose of the review. She was calm, methodical, and completely uninterested in anyone's feelings. She placed a stack of documents in the center of the table and began. "This meeting concerns the Eleanor Brooks Family Trust, established in 2006, naming Natalie Jean Brooks as the sole beneficiary. Between 2011 and 2016, for withdrawals totaling $143,600 were made from this trust. Each withdrawal was accompanied by a signed consent form bearing what appears to be the beneficiary's signature." She paused and looked at my father. "Mr. Brooks, do you maintain that your daughter authorized these withdrawals?" My dad straightened in his chair. "Yes," he said. "Natalie knew about every transaction. It was a family decision. We discussed it openly, and she agreed." "That's correct," my mother added. "We sat down together and talked about it. The money was needed." Sandra nodded and opened a folder. "I'd like to direct your attention to the consent forms submitted to Weston Financial." She placed 4 documents on the table, each one displayed in a clear plastic sleeve. "These are the forms that authorize the withdrawals. Each one bears a signature attributed to Natalie Brooks. However, our review has identified several inconsistencies." She pointed to the first form. This signature uses a middle initial of R. Natalie's middle name is Jean. Her initial is J. My dad's attorney glanced sideways at him. Sandra continued. The second and third forms show a signature style that does not match Natalie's verified signature on file with her employer, her bank, or her driver's license. She placed a comparison sheet next to the consent forms. The differences were obvious, even to someone without training. The loops were wrong. The spacing was off. It looked like someone had tried to copy my handwriting from memory and missed. The fourth form, Sandra said, is dated April 2016. On that date, Natalie Brooks was attending a professional development conference in Denver, Colorado. We have hotel records, registration logs, and a signed attendance sheet that confirm she was not in the state when this form was allegedly signed in person at the Weston Financial Branch office in Hartford. The room was silent. My dad's face had gone from confident to rigid. My mother was staring at the table. Valerie had uncrossed her arms. Sandra looked at my father. Mr. Brooks, do you have any documentation, any emails, texts, or recorded conversations that confirm your daughter's verbal or written consent to these withdrawals? Patterson, their attorney, leaned in and whispered something. My dad shook his head. We didn't keep records of every conversation, he said. This was a family matter. We don't run our household like a courtroom. Unfortunately, Sandra said, when trust funds are involved, the law does. Mr. Halpern spoke for the first time. He placed a letter on the table. This is correspondence I received from Mr. Brooks in 2011, requesting early access to the trust. In this letter, he acknowledges that the trust is designated solely for Natalie and asks whether an exception can be made. I denied the request. 3 months later, withdrawals began without my involvement or knowledge. My dad stared at the letter. He recognized it. I could see it in his eyes. You'd take this to court? He said, turning to me. His voice was low, controlled, but I could hear the edge in it. The desperation. I looked at him. My hands were steady. My voice was clear. You took it from me first, I said. Valerie spoke for the first time. Wait, she said. Her voice was different now. Smaller. Are you saying my tuition was paid with this money? Nobody answered her. She looked at my dad. Dad, you told me you took out a second mortgage. He didn't look at her. You used Natalie's trust to pay for my law school, she said again, louder this time. My mother reached for Valerie's hand. Sweetheart, we did what we had to do. You lied to me, Valerie said. You told me it was the mortgage. Sandra moved the conversation forward. She outlined the potential legal consequences. Civil liability for the full amount plus interest. Potential criminal charges for forgery and fraud. Reporting obligations to the state bar if any licensed attorney was aware of or participated in the forgery. Derek shifted in his chair. Patterson whispered again. My father's confident posture had collapsed. He was leaning back, arms loose at his sides, looking at the table like he was trying to find a way out that didn't exist. Sandra presented 2 options. Option 1. A formal legal proceeding, including potential criminal referral. Option 2. A structured repayment agreement with full restitution of the trust balance plus accrued interest, paid over a defined period, with independent oversight. You have 14 days to respond, Sandra said. After that, we proceed with the formal filing. The meeting ended. Nobody shook hands. My parents walked out without looking at me. Valerie stopped at the door. She turned around, opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, then closed it again and left. I stayed in the conference room for a few minutes after everyone was gone. Mr. Halpern put his hand on my shoulder. Your grandmother would be proud of you, he said. I nodded. I couldn't speak. But for the first time in 36 years, I didn't need to. My parents chose option 2. They agreed to a structured repayment plan, full restitution of the trust balance plus interest, totaling just over $168,000. Paid in monthly installments over 5 years with independent oversight from Sandra Voss's office. It wasn't a courtroom victory. It was quieter than that. But it was real. Valerie called me a week after the meeting. Her voice was strained, careful, like she was reading from a script she'd written and rewritten a dozen times. I didn't know, Natalie, she said. I really didn't know where the money came from. I'm sorry. I believed her. Partially. She hadn't known about the forgery. But she had spent years standing beside the people who dismissed me, mocked me, and called me jealous for simply wanting to be seen. An apology didn't erase that. I hear you, I said. But I need space. I need a lot of it. She paused. Are you coming to the wedding? No, I said. I'm not. She didn't argue. I think she understood, even if she didn't like it. The wedding happened without me. I heard it was beautiful. I didn't ask for details. I used part of the recovered funds to create something that mattered. The Eleanor Brooks Memorial Scholarship, awarded annually to a first-generation college student at the school where I work. My grandmother believed in steady people. Quiet people. The ones who show up and do the work without applause. This scholarship is for them. The first recipient was a 17-year-old girl named Maya who had a 3.8 GPA, worked 2 jobs, and had never once been told she was extraordinary. I handed her the award letter personally. She cried. I almost did too. My family called me jealous. They called me dramatic. They said I was tearing the family apart. But I wasn't tearing anything apart. I was finally refusing to hold together something that was built on my silence. They didn't lose me because I was ungrateful. They lost me because I stopped being afraid to see the truth. And the truth is this. I was never jealous. I was just finally done being quiet. If you've ever had someone in your family use your name, your savings, your credit, or your trust without asking, then you know the kind of betrayal I'm talking about. It's not just about money. It's about the people who were supposed to protect you being the ones who took from you. It cuts deeper than anything a stranger could do because you never expected to need protection from your own family. If this story felt personal to you, I want you to know that your experience matters. You're not dramatic. You're not ungrateful. And you're not wrong for wanting accountability from the people who hurt you. Share your story in the comments. You might be surprised how many people understand exactly what you've been through. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. This is a community for people who refuse to stay silent. Hit that like button. And click share to help this story reach someone else who needs to hear it today. You never know who's sitting alone right now, wondering if they're the only one. Did this story hit home? Let me know by liking the video and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. If you've faced betrayal from the people who were supposed to love you the most, you're not alone, and your voice matters here. Click share to help this story find others who've felt the same way. Every share, every comment, every subscription makes a real difference. It tells me these stories matter to you, and it helps them reach the people who need them most. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you in the next one.